year. Now today, 24th of Tevet, is going to mark the Hilula according to the Haimi website of a famous rabbi. His name was Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso. Famous rabbi we've spoken about on various occasions before he become, I think, very much part of the Lועז, famous book. And they will mention him, the Haimi website, on the 24th of Tevet, because I think that was a month where it was printed in the Kushta, the Perushan on the book of Shemot. Very interesting enough. So remember, the Lועז is a brilliant Tanakh collection. I don't know if it's on all parts of the Tanakh, but brilliant commentaries, let's just say, within regards to that. And he very much was a part of that. Let's explore a few of the highlights of the famous rabbi's life now. So Rabbi Yitzhak, I think, was born and came from great rabbinic auspices. I believe his father's name was Rav Moshe, and he was born in Kushta in Turkey. Remember, that place had a great Torah community. He would learn Torah at a young age under the great rabbis of the city of Istanbul, and will become let's say he'll be appointed to become a chacham, a rabbi. He will work as a dayan, as a judge, I think, in the city of Istanbul. I think it was somewhat the year 1732. I think it was after Rabbi Yaakov Kuli had passed away. Himshich et mafalav hamonatali shel Chacham Yaakov Kuli ma'am Lועז. Chacham Yaakov Kuli הספיק לחבר את כרך בספר בראשית וחלק מספר שמות עד פרשת תרומה. So remember, Rabbi Yaakov Kuli was a very great rabbi. He was the author of the Ma'am Lועז. I think during the middle of the book of Shemot, it could be that I think he passed away. He didn't continue, obviously, his writings at that point in time. So Rabbi Magrisso would very much have a window of time where he would do it. Let's say something about Rabbi Yaakov Kuli for a minute, because he was a key rabbi of his time period, a very famous he was. So who was he? He lived approximately between, I think, towards the late 1600s. He passed away in 1732. He was a brilliant biblical commentator of his time. I think he actually came from a exiled Spanish family, and was a grandson and pupil of Rabbi Moses ibn Habib, another great rabbi who spoke on various occasions here inside the series. I think Rabbi Moshe ibn Habib happens to have been a Rishon LeZion, so came from great pedigree. I think Rabbi Yaakov Kuli would edit various important works. I think especially great publications of his grandfather's writings. And I think he would spend a big window of time and live in Svat, and will eventually relocate to Constantinople and engage really inside the works of his grandfather. I think in 1714 he would enter into close relations with the chief rabbi of Constantinople of that point in time, someone named Rabbi Judah or Yehuda Rosenes, another great rabbi. I think he was known as Mishnah Lemelech, and obviously because of his very, very important work. And he himself, I think, was son-in-law of Rabbi Abraham Rosenes, which is very interesting. So, that's obviously phenomenal. Rabbi Rosenes will appoint Rabbi Kuli as a dayan, which I think, together with his position as a teacher, would secure him a sufficient livelihood. In 1727, Rabbi Kuli published his grandfather's work called the Shemot Ba'aretz, which is a book of notes on various different portions of the Talmud Bavli. And then I think in that year when Rosenes died, he left voluminous literary remains, and it wasn't in the best condition, I think. And to introduce, let's say, order into this, let's say Rav Kuli was entrusted with this task. It would take several years, but I think in 1728 he would edit Rabbi Rosenes' book on Parshat Derachim. It was a work basically on halachic, midrashic, in content, and 3 years, I think, later, he finally published Rabbi Rosenes' voluminous Mishnah Lemelech, one of the most famous commentaries on Maimonides' Mishnah Torah, we have to point out, which has numerous important notes of its own. And I think Rabbi Kuli would write a preface for both of them. And then eventually he would also edit his grandfather's Ezrat Nashim. I think in the beginning, I think there were 2 responses there. Obviously, the most important work of his was Ma'am Lועז, which we're going to come into while we're speaking about the rabbi we're speaking about today. And this was written in Salonika, and obviously is held at a very high esteem by many, many people in the Jewish community. It was, I think, originally it was an elaborate encyclopedic commentary in Ladino, dealing with Jewish life in all, let's say, relations, material, which was taken from Talmud and the Midrash, and let's say early rabbinic literature also. I think Rabbi Kuli only managed to write obviously Bereshit and 2/3 of Shemot, and then he passed away. And that's where the great rabbi was speaking about, Rabbi Magrisso, will actually come in. So that's very, very interesting. We're going to be back in half a minute, friends. So just watch your space, and we'll be back in half a minute. So just please be patient. Going to take a very short break. Hi, Shalom, everyone. Thanks for being patient. We are just back. We're speaking about great Rabbi over here today in a special edition, which the Hilula of Rabbi Magrisso is commemorated here, according to the Hayomi website, here on the 24th of Tevet. He was very much part of the great book of the Lועז. We just spoke about Rabbi Yaakov Kuli just for a minute, and now we're going to continue speaking about the great Rabbi over here, Rabbi Magrisso. And so I think it was... I think in the year 1746, Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso would actually bring about the volume of Shemot of the Lועז, let's just say, and this will get approval with regards to the famous philanthropist, someone named of Rabbi Yehuda Mizrahi. I think it was in the year 1753. It would actually come out the book of Vayikra of Lועז. This would get, I think, from Rav Yeshaya Ajiman, if I'm not mistaken, Shahayabanki Shel Rosh Sava Hanitzrim HaOttomanim. So he was from the Ottoman Empire. So he was a key person that would, so various different key figures, let's just say, would very much help the formation of this great Torah colossal book over there at that window of time. So then more will progress as time went on. As we let's talk about, I think it was in the year Tafkuf Chavdalet, I think, come out 1764, if I'm not mistaken, when I think will come out the book of במדבר of מאמלואס. בהקדמה לכרך זה, הוא מבקש מהקוראים להמשיך להזמין ולשלם עבור הדפסת גילוניות מאמלואס, וכך לממן את המשך הדפסת גילוניות הספר. החכם יצחק מאגריסו לא הספיק לחבר את כרך דברים של מאמלואס, ואת הכרך ריבה לאחר פטירת חכם יצחק מאגריסו, חכם יצחק יצחק, I believe, would actually print it. So you can see that this was the book, I believe, of Dvarim, if I'm not mistaken, the final book itself. So you could see that he did probably did actually author the majority of this book, the Lועז, because he obviously had a part in Shemot, the whole of Vayikra and Bamidbar, and a part of Dvarim also, which is very interesting to point out. Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso was also obviously another key author, let's just say, in of itself, someone that's very, very important to speak about. I think, he would actually write it later on, a wait period later on. I think he lived between 1862 to 1944, so if I'm not mistaken. So he is a key figure over there at that point in time. And I think maybe he'll have a role to play within regards to that. That's something that we very much have to point about over there. So, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was, let's just say a word within regards to Rav Argo-iti. Now, also because I might have made the mistake, maybe there was another rabbi with that specific name in of itself, but Rav Argo-iti, I think he would grow up from the great rabbis also in Kushta, especially Rabbi Yitzhak David, if I'm not mistaken, who was author of Divrei Emet, and Rabbi Chaim Pipani, another rabbi we've spoken about on this series. Vayale echad mechochmei Kushta, Chai Chayai dachak ba'oni, v'kol amlo ayu b'Torah. All his dealings was within regards to Torah. I think in 1764, after Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso passed away, he would actually continue within regards to the works of Rabbi Yaakov Kuli, also of the Lועז. He would, I think, complete the book of Dvarim of Lועז בכתיבת פירוש לספר דברים. נעשה בספירותיהם של חכם יצחק פרץ וחכם ישראל יעקב אלגזי, if I'm not mistaken, אביו של חכם יום טוב אלגזי. מאחר שחכם ישראל יעקב אלגזי גר בירושלים, נראה שחכם יצחק ארגוציני כתב את גיבורו בירושלים. Seemingly, maybe it was published over there. I think in 1770 he would השלים את מלאכת הכתיבה על החלק הראשון של דברים, מפרשת דברים עד פרשת עקב. He would complete that, let's say, the first two parashiyot. I think in 1773 will be printed in Kushta. Come on, 1777, he would start printing, I think, the second part of the Lועז, of the book of Dvarim. And it says, "Ve'ach macha v'lo matza dai kesef ladviso, lo hutfsu utkim machelek ze, v'chelek ze avad lanu im hashnayim. כי יוצא מצוי רק שעה וכמה עמודים הראשונים מעותק של ספר זה, את החלק השני של לועז לספר דברים המצוי בדינו כיום. מפרשת ראה על פרשת וזאת הברכה, כתב חכם שמואל ירושלמי, שתקום את סדרת ספרי לועז מלעדינו ולערבית. I think we also, with regards to Rav Argo-iti, don't necessarily specifically know when he passed away, but they commemorated the Haimi website on the 25th of Av, we have to point out. So that's very interesting over here. Now, friends, anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community, as we are marking the Hilul of Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso over here, who was a very famous rabbi of his point of time and was an author of the Torah colossal work, the Lועז. So as we said before, we weren't sure on the exact date when he passed away, but seemingly it's commemorated on the 24th of Tevet, probably because of the book of Shemot coming out at that specific window of time. So what was the Yalkut Lועז? Let's just say a word within regards to that before we explore a few of his teachings over there. It was a commentary on the Tanakh, I think originally written in Judeo-Spanish, and was known as a publication in that language. Let's just say it was one of the first major printings of Judeo-Spanish texts in the Ottoman Empire, we have to point out. Obviously, there was expulsion of Jews from Spain in 1492, so many Sephardic Jews would settle in Ottoman Empire. They would bring their customs, culture, Judeo-Spanish language. Hebrew remained the language of ritual, prayer, and scholarship, but comprehension by the Jewish masses obviously decreased, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, there was a major initiative which was launched in 1730 with the printing of the first volume of the Lועז, which was to be a thorough commentary on the Bible in Judeo-Spanish. And the printing of Lועז, I would think, marked the emergence of large-scale printing activity in Judeo-Spanish in the Western Ottoman Empire in general and in Constantinople in particular. So you can see it has a key role in of itself. The content itself was phenomenal. Various different, especially concentrating Torah commentaries of the original Rabbi Kuli originally. Let's say took this incredible task of writing a compendium of various different key fields of Torah study, a commentary. Obviously, it was used to be a user-friendly, let's say, and written in Judeo-Spanish, the Jewish languages, which was obviously spoken by the Sephardic Jews of Turkey at the time. I think at that point in time, most Sephardic Jews could not read Hebrew, if I'm not mistaken. That's what's actually quoted here in Wikipedia. The title of the work comes from the first line, I think, of Psalm 114, where it says, where Lועז means strange language. Let's see, the book was divided according to the weekly Torah portion, Parashat HaShavua, explaining over there each chapter in detail according to the Midrash and Talmud, as well as discussing the relevant halacha, which is based on the code of Jewish law and the Mishnah Torah. It's actually interesting. Rabbi Kuli, in the response, guarantees that everyone who reads the Lועז every day will be able to answer in heaven that he has learned the whole Torah, because all aspects of Torah are covered from it. So it's actually interesting. So we can see how it was divided up, this book in of itself. Rabbi Kuli only passed away 2 years after completing Bereshit. Obviously, wrote 2/3 of Shemot. Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso, who we're speaking about today, with complete Shemot, he would write the commentary on the books of Vayikra and Bamidbar. And so he was probably the biggest author, let's just say, of the 5 books of Moses. And the Devarim was written by Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso, who we mentioned about before. Then the commentary of Joshua, later on, be actually written by another rabbi, Rabbi Menachem Mitrani. So who was he, Rabbi Mitrani? I think we've also spoken about him before, also inside this series. I think it was also another famous rabbi of his time. It would be good to, if anyone knows more information about him, I'll appreciate if you can tell me. The Book of Esther was done by a Rabbi Raphael Chia Pontre-Moli. Now, the Pontre-Moli family is a famous family we've spoken about here on various occasions before. He was also the editor of Simcha Ish of Rabbi Chaim Shunshol, if I'm not mistaken. He was born, I think, in Turkey, in Smyrna, and of an important rabbinic dynasty over there. And I think Rabbi Pontre-Moli's family would actually come from Italy, more interesting enough. So Rabbi Raphael Chia Pontre-Moli, I think he lived between 1850, he passed away in 1870, if I'm not mistaken. He was a great author of his point in time, and so he would write the Megillat Esther, and sadly he passed away about 20 years of age, if I'm not mistaken. And he wrote other works also, including Kedushat HaYom and Shivrei Ha'ari, if I'm not mistaken. So great Torah works in of itself. He will be part of that, let's just say, that model. It's actually interesting to go back to the Lועז book. I think Rabbi Shmuel Yerushalmi translated the works into Hebrew, although I think it would deviate from originals, let's say, on the Nevi'im commentaries in the book of Avot. He also continued the Lועז work in Hebrew on many of the books of Nach that the sages before him did not write. So more translations will come about. The Lועז will become very popular in Jewish communities, especially in Turkey, Spain, Morocco, Egypt. And there was a decline of Judeo-Spanish after the Holocaust. Various translations were produced, and the work was still then found in many, let's say, various Orthodox synagogues. To this day, I think in 1967, there was a Hebrew translation of Yalkut Lועז, which was produced by Rabbi Shmuel Kravitzer, if I'm not mistaken. And the first English translation, the Torah anthology, was written by, if I'm not mistaken, primarily by Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan. Thus, let's just say, translation made use of both of Rabbi Yerushalmi's Hebrew translation as well as Judeo-Spanish manuscripts. So that's very, very interesting. I think just to, so you can see the great works and efforts that the people of Israel did at that window of time. So we're speaking here about the Lועז over here, and also mostly about a famous rabbi over here that the Haimi website is marking as Hilula, Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso, if I'm not mistaken. Let's explore a few of the highlights of his book, because he wrote over here pretty much probably approximately 2.5 of the 5 books of Moses. So his first teaching inside the book is Melamed Shakpida Torah B'mi Shiudo B'Tza'ar Chavero V'Nimna L'Tmoch Bo. This I think is very much featured in the Lועז in pages Shin Chaf Vav Shin Chaf Zayin, if I'm not mistaken. Over there, it's printed in 1968, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if this was a Hebrew edition or not. Another teaching of his, Melamed Shebahar Sinai Kibel Hacham Sodot Torah Lamdam LeBnei Dora. Another very important teaching, let's just say, which is actually comes about, I think, in Shemot, chapter number 3, if I'm not mistaken. So it's, very, very important. And this specific teaching. And he's got more. I think another teaching of his, Melamed Ta'am Shnichtava Mitzvah Matzonot Aniyim Be'emtza HaMoadim. This comes once again from Vayikra, I think from page Rish Pei Aleph, if I'm not mistaken, of Yakut Mam Lועז. Once again, I think it was printed in the year 1968, we have to point out. So you can see this book itself had many great, colossal highlights to it, connotations and importances, and how important it is that we learn about the great books and the great rabbis of yesteryear and how much we can benefit from their actions and our actions. And that's how important it is to actually read about them. Friends, anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community as we are exploring the life of great rabbi of his day, one of the authors or main authors, let's just say, of the famous book called the Ma'am Lועז, which is, let's just say, encompasses, let's just say, the entire Torah, respectively. So how important it is that we actually learn and we grapple with it, the great rabbis today. So, okay, we spoke about Rabbi Raphael Chia Pontri Moli over here. Let's just go back, because the Ma'am Lועז was obviously a great Torah work. A couple more highlights from his book. He would teach Melamed Ma'aseh Barasha Shechri'a Beitza Shnatan Oni V'Zacha Legan Eden. This is a teaching, I think, that very much comes from page Tet Zayin. Once again, this, I think, in the Yerushalmi, if I'm not mistaken, and another very, very important work. So, very, very interesting. Friends, anyone tuning in live at the moment, please subscribe to our community over here as we're learning about a great rabbi of yesteryear. So please, we're about to reach 9,000 subscribers, which is a phenomenal achievement. So please subscribe at the moment and enjoy and educate as we're exploring Rabbi Yitzhak's teachings over here. Now, another teaching of his, which is another phenomenal thing. Melamed Shebirkat Kohanim B'Tanai She'ein Machlokot Mafrida B'Neichem. It's another important teaching, I think, featured in page 60 of the book. Once again, it was printed in 1968, the Yalkut Ma'am Lועז. Now, another final teaching he will actually give over, I think, very much in pages Reish Vav to Reish Zayin. Melamed Shegam HaTochachat Tzrichat Yot Ba'abas. The importance of when one is rebuking someone else, that one should do it out of love. How important it is to be under that topic. And this was, I think, once again printed in the year 1968, which is very, very interesting enough. So we spoke about various rabbis. We over here we're here to speak about Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso, who will be an author of the Ma'am Lועז. But the Ma'am Lועז would have various different topics. It was a great, colossal, let's just say, authorship, where there was many, many volumes. So we have to point out, it wasn't just the 5 books. Moses, a lot of Nevi'im was actually very much featured over there. The stories over there, so very interesting. I think this book of the Ma'am Lועז include Agudat Chazal, let's just say, on the Mikra Lashon, which is very, very popular, and especially among Sephardic Jews, Turkish Jews, the Balkanese Jews, they would very much read it, I think, in its original state also, if I'm not mistaken. So that's very interestingly. So, so we spoke about the rabbis that were involved. Those 2 rabbis, Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso, who we happen to be speaking about today. Also, we spoke about Rabbi Yaakov Argoiti. I'm just going to take another short minute, half-minute break, and we're going to come back in 1 minute and continue and conclude this video. So watch your space and hold on for a minute. And if you didn't subscribe yet, please subscribe now to the channel. It's got phenomenal content. Hi, Shalom, everyone. Thanks for being patient over here as we explain the life of the great rabbi of the Lועז here, respectively. So much can be said. It's been translated into so many different languages. Also, that's something that we have to point out by many different publishers, and very, very important. I think there was, let's talk about some other parts of the Lועז book. I think it's important to bring that up also. All throughout the years, great rabbis would actually print other versions of the book, and in different countries also. I think Lועז on the book of Yeshua was actually written through Rabbi Rachmim Menachem Mitzra'ani, who was a great rabbi, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not too sure the exact date when Rabbi Mitzra'ani would actually publish this. I think we've spoken about him here on this series on various occasions before. That's something I have to point out. National Library of Israel very much has his writing, so it'll be interesting to know more information within regards to him of Rabbi Mitzra'ani. We did speak about a few Rabbi Mitzra'anis here in this series on previous occasions. I think Megillat Esther, as mentioned before, was connected to Rabbi Raphael Pontri Moli, if I'm not mistaken. Then also Sefer Yeshaya, which was written by Rabbi Yitzhak Yoada. He was also nicknamed, I think, Abba, would be printed, I think, in Saloniki in 1892. Another book, the Lועז of Megillat Ruth, which is by Rabbi Raphael Yitzhak Meir ben Venisti. Another great rabbi, we're talking about Benevisti, Rabbinic Dynasty. Also, this was in 1892, seemingly. And there was two books of Megillat Kohelet, for example, from Rab Shlomo HaKohen, who was author of the Cheshek Shlomo, I think in 1893. So that would be another one. And the Lועז, obviously, Shir Hashirim, which was written by Rabbi Chaim Yitzchak Shaki, who was another great rabbi of his time, and I think printed in Kusha, who was Rabbi Chaim Yitzchak Shaki. He was another famous rabbi. He lived between 1853 to 1940. He was one of the great rabbis, and I think Chacham Bashi, at that point in time, a chief rabbi of Turkey, and was known as an expert within regards to languages. He was studying Talmud Torah, obviously, and then I think before he would continue and progress studying full-time, he would maybe be working, very, very short part of the day, but being very, very great in of itself. So he passed away, I think, in Istanbul. It happened to be in Turkey. He was about 87 years of age at the point in time. Harav Chaim Yitzchak Shaki. So very, very interesting about. Yes, so let's just go back to our city, Bet Shemesh, over here. What a nice city it happens to be. Anyone is looking to make Aliyah at the moment, please send me an email. I'd love to assist you and point you in the right direction. Just speaking about the city of Bet Shemesh, we're speaking about a very great rabbi today. Rabbi that will be very, very popular and go on to, and still is doing huge, huge amounts of importances. That's something that we very much have to point out over here. And Rabbi Chaim Yitzhak Magrisso, we still learn from his books and so on and so forth. How important it is, obviously, his book was printed in Saloniki in of its day, and very awesome to learn more about the great rabbis of yesteryear. And our friends, we're a community here. We are learning about great rabbis of yesteryear. Now, if you haven't yet subscribed to our community, to our channel, please subscribe to the channel, and you're going to get loads of updates quickly within regards to newer videos that we put up, and so on and so forth, really helping out. And as we explore, let's just say, the Jewish history of previous countries of yesteryear, how important actually it is to actually do that. That's something I will very much have to point out over here. And much more to be said over. So please, friends, wishing all a fantastic day, meaningful week ahead. See, and Bez Hashem, just try and keep active, try and do good things, and so on and so forth. So very, very important. And keep up and watch the previous videos we've actually recorded over here on this series. Very, very interesting, and take care, and thanks for watching. Okay, yeah, very, very interesting there. Sorry about the break over there. Friends, everyone that you're tuning in live. At the moment, we're exploring the life of Rabbi Yitzhak Magrisso. So it was just sending an important message within regards to one of the videos. So please, everyone, you've tuned in live, subscribe to the channel, join our community over here. We don't just record videos here about great rabbis of yesteryear. We're doing tours all over Israel. We are at the moment, a very, very exciting project that we are working on is that we are exploring the different countries across the world. What were the Jewish communities like in various places across the world? What kind of atmosphere was it? Was there anti-Semitism? How many great rabbis were there? Which parts of the country were rabbis famous for over there in those various places? I'd recommend everyone to watch those previous videos. At the moment, we are talking about the Netherlands inside that specific part of the series, which is also very, very much exciting and very, let's just say, inviting topic, because it's a lot of content actually to cover in those videos also respectively, which is very, very phenomenal. So friends over here, welcome to our community. Thanks for all the phenomenal feedback which we've got recently. I really appreciate all the great feedback everyone is giving. So may it keep going on and strong, and we educate ourselves with more. And yeah, please learn more about the famous rabbis of yesteryear. And yeah, he was a famous author of the famous book, the Lועז. How important it is to learn more, to educate more within regards to him. And yeah, wishing all a great day, and thanks for watching.